Year, 1963. Place, England. Petty robberies no longer satisfy Bruce Reynolds, and he decides to pull off one of the biggest heists in history. The Great Train Robbery in Glasgow, 1963. On Thursday, August 8, 1963, at around 3 a.m., £2.6 million in cash was stolen from a mobile postal service train travelling between Glasgow Central Station and London Euston Station. A senior security guard was relaying to Bruce Reynolds the days when the train was loaded with the most money. The day had been chosen, and everyone on the crew had practiced their part well. Some had learned how to drive a locomotive, others how to sort the cars, others the escape route. Immediately after the robbery, Bruce Reynolds planned not to leave town immediately but to wait in a nearby house. The team followed Bruce's advice and rented a farmhouse close to where the robbery was to take place. Here they spent weeks planning and reconnoitering all the details of the plan before the heist. Now everything was ready and the team waited for the train. As soon as the train from Glasgow to London reached the Sears crossing at Ledburn, two of the robbers changed the lights at the station from green to red. The train stopped at the station. The substitute engineer saw that the green light was not on for a long time and went down to check on the attendant. Meanwhile, the robbers entered the train, and when the substitute engineer returned, he was knocked unconscious by the robbers. The main engineer had already been incapacitated, and the robbers were now in charge of the train. Separating the first two cars from the others, they brought the front part of the train, where the high-value mail packages section was located, towards the Bridego Bridge below, and the train began to move towards the place where the robbery was to take place. The train was brought to the Bridego Bridge and stopped there. The robbers started to enter the carriages and quickly neutralized the staff inside the train. They tied them all with handcuffs and gathered them in one carriage. They then brought the engineers into this car. While some of the team stood over the hostages, others started unloading the sacks of money quickly. In about 20 minutes, they had transferred 128 sacks of money to the truck. The robbers packed up and left the scene. The gang headed towards the farm where they were staying through side roads. Listening to police broadcasts on the radio, the team arrived at the farm after about 45 minutes. The team carrying the money to the farmhouse stole £2.6 million. The money was divided into approximately £150,000 per person. When the police arrived on the scene, they immediately launched a massive search. They couldn't have gotten very far. They checked all the places where the robbers could have gone. The bus station, the airport, the roads. But no one thought to look in the immediate vicinity of the robbery. Bruce Reynolds was the leader of the gang, and everything was going according to his plan. After a few days, the gang didn't want to stay here anymore and decided to leave. But it was a good idea because one of the detectives thought the gang might be in the neighborhood and started a search. By the time the cops found the house, it was too late. The robbers were gone. Bruce Reynolds thought it would attract attention if he burned down the house on his escape, so he thought he would hire a man to burn down the farm later. But by the time the man he hired came to burn the house down, the police had found the farm. There were many fingerprints in the house on the farm, and so the robbers were caught one by one. Some were caught a few weeks after the robbery, some years later, and some were never caught. Bruce Reynolds was caught in 1968 after being on the run for about 5 years. One of the gang members caught with fingerprints taken from the farmhouse was Ronnie Biggs. However, Ronnie Biggs escaped from prison 2 years after his capture. Ronnie Biggs, 35, escaped by climbing over a 9-meter wall in the ventilation yard using a rope ladder arranged by his outside henchmen and jumping into a van waiting outside. Ronnie Biggs was the second of the 15-man gang who carried out the robbery to escape from prison that year, and the news was widely reported in the media. But the public were not angry with the police. They were mesmerized by the story of the Great Train Robbery. The Great Train Robbery, followed by Biggs' escape from prison and 36 years as a fugitive, gave him the notoriety that would make him famous. Fleeing first to Paris, then to Australia, Panama, and Brazil, Biggs finally settled in Rio de Janeiro, leaving his wife and children in Melbourne. Although news of Ronnie Biggs' presence in Brazil was reported in 1974, nothing could be done because Brazil did not have an exchange agreement with the United Kingdom. It was later discovered that Biggs was involved with a Brazilian woman who was pregnant with his child at the time. He was granted permission to live in Brazil, as under Brazilian law, the parent of a child of Brazilian nationality is exempt from any form of criminal exchange. In 2001, he voluntarily returned to the UK to serve his sentence when he was very ill, but instead received specialist help with his illness. Ronnie Biggs' life on the run can be interesting and entertaining, but what is really unusual is that he approaches crime as an enterprise. When he lived in Rio, he was forbidden to work, go to bars, or be outside his house after 10 p.m. because he was a known criminal. So, to make money, he organized barbecue parties at his home where tourists could meet him and hear about his role in the robbery. Many celebrities visited him and licensed merchandise such as t-shirts and mugs were made in his name. And Biggs wasn't the only one. Bruce Reynolds, the leader of the gang and the mastermind behind the heist, also briefly consulted on a heist movie after his sentence was over, and in 1995 he published a book about his life, Autobiography of a Thief. Goody Gordon, another member of the gang, also published a book called How to Rob a Train in 2013. In 1999, Reynolds and Biggs even set out to make a game version of the Great Train Robbery, but the project never materialized. Even the robbers' sons capitalized on their father's notoriety by publishing a compilation in 2013 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Great Train Robbery. And how do you think criminals are able to monetize their reputation and their stories? Economically, there are many things that the public is responsible for. Did these people meet an expected demand? A month after the robbery, in August 1963, Leatherslide Farm was opened by its owner for a fee to anyone who wanted to see the gang's headquarters. The British Rail Police joined in the enthusiasm, issuing the following statement: "It has to be said that the Great Train Robbery was a really well-planned and executed robbery. Apart from the attack on the engineer, no shots were fired and no one was hurt during the robbery." Why do we develop a respect for robbers that goes against social norms? Is the transformation of criminals into heroes a sign of something wrong with our age? Probably not. Outcasts and rebels have long been heroic characters, both in fiction and in real life. Hollywood has a lot to do with this, but according to psychologists, the main reason why criminals enjoy public support is the principle that people who are less likely to succeed are more likely to be supported. This principle fits the case of the notorious British criminals. The criminals who carried out the Great Train Robbery grew up in the South and East, the poorer parts of London in the middle of the 20th century. The Kray twins were likewise from East London, while the Peaky Blinders came out of the poor, war-weary neighbourhoods of Birmingham. Banditry has also been romanticized in literature as a way of life for poor people. The population explosion in London in the 17th century led to the expansion of the city's poor neighbourhoods and the creation of labyrinths of misery, full of pain, poverty, and congestion. Stealing from the rich was seen as only fair to the people who lived there and suffered from poverty and hunger. The 15 men who carried out the Great Train Robbery will continue to be remembered not only for the scale of their heist, but also as the most typical examples of criminal celebrities who could profit from their illegal deeds for years to come. Bruce Reynolds died on February 28, 2013, and Ronnie Biggs died on December 18, 2013. Many of the crew received 12 to 15-year prison sentences, while others were never caught.